Thanks very much, delegates, and I'm very proud to move the adoption of Chapter 3 of the National Platform Building Australia's Future. And I want to thank all of those who've been involved in its formulation, including Joel Fitzgibbon, Jason Clare, Michelle Rowland, who will second this adoption, Stephen Jones, Kim Carr, and other members who've participated constructively. Labor is, of course, the party of nation building. It's what we do. It's one of the clear divides in Australian politics. It has always been thus. You think of the great nation-building projects, whether it's the Transcontinental Railway, whether it's the Snowy Mountain Scheme, whether it's investment in our roads and railways, airports and ports. It is Labor that understands that the way that you build prosperity is to invest in physical capital through infrastructure and invest in human capital through education and training. It's one of the great divides in Australian politics. And we're seeing it again from the current government, where figures from the Parliamentary Budget Office show that over the forward estimates, infrastructure investment as a proportion of our national economy will fall from 0.4% of GDP down to 0.2% and stay at that level over the next decade. The chapter before us is a blueprint to addressing the challenge of an incoming Labor government if we're successful at the election in just a few months' time. Our starting point is very simple, that good infrastructure projects create jobs and economic activity in the short term while driving productivity in the long term. The right investments build prosperity now, but more importantly, they create opportunities in the future for our children and their children. A shortened Labor government would return to the independent, evidence-based process for project selection that we pioneered when we were last in government when we created Infrastructure Australia. Our immediate priorities include investing in public transport in our capital cities to tackle traffic congestion. Working with state governments, we'll build Cross River Rail in Brisbane. We'll build the Western Sydney Rail. We'll build the Western Metro in Sydney. We'll invest in Perth's Metronet project. We'll invest in light rail here in South Australia, in Adelaide. And we'll invest with the Andrews government in the Melbourne's suburban rail loop. We'll not just invest in rail, we'll invest in roads. And when we invest in roads, we do it not just to build productivity, but also to make our roads safer for all who use it. And one of the things that we will do is restore safe rates when it comes to our truck drivers around this country. The fact is that after years of decline in the number of fatalities on our roads, in the last 3 years, that reversal has now been that we're seeing an increase in fatalities on our roads. And some of that involves heavy vehicles. We will deliver safe rates. We'll do it in a way that doesn't damage the economy, because safe rates will actually boost productivity, boost safety on our roads, make sure that people can go home at night after work. We'll re-establish the Major Cities Unit within Infrastructure Australia. We'll work closely with states and local government to forge genuine city partnerships, not just in our capital cities, but importantly in our regional cities. Our second priority will be about regional economic development. Labor, of course, is the party of the bush, built by working people who understand the value of solidarity. We want our regions to be stronger so that the commodity-based industries that they rely upon can grow and create jobs and export income. Labor's decentralisation plan isn't about moving a few public servants to Barnaby Joyce's electorate. It's about driving what the drivers are that will build decentralisation, and that's the national broadband network. That's high-speed rail down the east coast of Australia. We'll use $1 billion of the Coalition's failed Northern Australia Fund to bolster regional tourism. We'll invest in regional infrastructure, including finishing the upgrades of the Bruce and Pacific highways. We will move forward with planning via the corridor acquisition for a high-speed rail link between Brisbane and Melbourne via Sydney and Canberra. That's nation building. And when it comes to rail, we'll also make sure that we invest in manufacturing right here as well. There are a large number of rail projects planned or underway. We want to make sure that those railway carriages are built here with steel and inputs that are produced here as well. We'll work out similar opportunities for collaboration in aviation and in shipping. And a Labor government will end the Coalition's war on Australian shipping. We wouldn't accept foreign-owned trucks with non-Australian drivers being paid foreign wage rates down the Hume Highway if goods have to travel from Sydney to Melbourne. We shouldn't accept it on the Blue Highway either. It is that simple. I want to see the Australian flag on the back of Australian ships with Australian seafarers around our coasts. This chapter builds on the previous chapter on education. The two things fit together. And that's why for every single project in which a federal Labor government contributes to states or territories or the private sector, we will demand that at least 1 in 10 of the workforce are Australian apprentices. And we'll make sure that it's boosting our manufacturing sector at the same time, as well as making sure that we're using Australian inputs such as Australian steel. Delegates, I commend the chapter to you.